Hollis's whole feelings based on him was from the moment I looked at him, my heart pulled towards him. Like, girl, your heart can pull towards food. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Hello friends, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. So earlier this year I pre-ordered The Betrothed by Kiera Cass, super excited to read it. And I was beyond happy when it actually came a week before the book was set to be released. However, all those happy vibes slowly left me as I started to read this book. So now I welcome you to watch my review of The Betrothed by Kiera Cass. Now before I jump into my oh so positive thoughts on this book, I'm going to tell you guys what this book is about. So we follow Hollis, a girl who has grown up in the Carescan castle among the other daughters of nobility looking to catch the eye of the king. She never thought that she would be the one he goes after, but he ends up really taking a liking to her and sets a plan to make her his queen. However, when she meets a boy from a nearby kingdom, her heart starts to pull towards him. And that's basically the synopsis of the book. Like, that's literally what it says on the inside of the cover. Like, that's all the plot they give you. Which is where our problems began. I had high expectations for this book, to say the least. I just finished rereading the Selection series, which is the series Kiera Cass is known for, and loved my time reading the books. So after finishing that, I was really excited to read The Betrothed and was excited to jump back into the world of Kiera Cass. And I was majorly disappointed. Like, I honestly expected this review to be full of like positive, happy vibes, but unfortunately, this is not the video where you will find those things. I've been going back and forth on what I would give this book, and I honestly have to say I'm giving it 2 out of 5 stars. It pains me to say, especially with how much I was like looking forward to enjoying it, but hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why. I don't have too much to say in terms of like non-spoilerly thoughts, but like I've already said, I did not like this book and I would not recommend it. While there were a few characters I liked, and I also liked her writing as well, the lack of plot in this book just cannot be overlooked for me. I would 100% recommend the Selection series over this book like any day. Definitely a better use of your time. I know I don't have that many non-spoiler thoughts that much, but from here on out, I will be talking in depth about spoilers of this book because I have a lot of opinions and thoughts I want to get out there, but leave like any comments you want, I'll answer them as best I can. But from here on out, there will be spoilers, so if you do not want to be spoiled, do not keep on watching. So please leave, and then once you read the book, come back later, but for now, I'm gonna just talk about spoilers. So now if you're watching this part, you've either read the book and are excited to hear my thoughts, or you just simply don't care. So either way, welcome. So in the spoiler section, I'm gonna talk about first the things I liked. And this part will be a lot shorter than the things I disliked, considering my very low rating for this book, but there were some things I liked nonetheless. One of them being her writing, and specifically her improvement. As I said, I just finished rereading the Selection series, or at least the first 3 books, and I really enjoyed it, but I could definitely tell the difference in her writing in this book. It feels a little bit more mature almost, and I really liked that because it made things easier to visualize and just enhanced the quality of the story. Well, the Selection series is definitely for younger teens, I would almost qualify it for. The writing in this book I feel makes this book just a little bit more mature for a slightly older audience, just of the way it's written. And I really did like that. I also really liked her world building in this book because in the Selection, specifically the Elite, I had some problems with the world building. I thought there was too many details being thrown in at once. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. But the way it's done in this book felt a lot more realistic in the way it was given to us. It made a lot more sense, and I was able to grasp the concepts pretty easily. So her world building in this book was really, really good, and that was probably one of the best portions of it because I was able to grasp the world pretty easily once I started getting into the book a little bit more. Other than those things, there were a couple characters I did like, and I did have a problem with a bunch of the major characters, but there were a few that stuck out. First off, Delia Grace. I liked her character from the beginning. She's one of the most realistic characters I almost feel, and I loved her friendship with Hollis. How I feel about Hollis is different, but Delia Grace, she was pretty good. I liked her motivations, and once they were unveiled, that she always wanted to be the one to be queen and to be Jameson's. But anyways, I loved her motivation behind it and how it's unveiled and how talented she is, and everything she does really just enhanced the story quite a bit. And considering there were many parts I didn't like, she really stood out to me as a great side character and really pushed the story along. So I really did enjoy her like incorporation to this book. I also really liked the Eastoff family other than Silas. I found that the parents were really nice and welcoming and really helpful, and I just really enjoyed their presence overall. Even when we didn't know too much about them, I found them kind of nice. And then once we got to learn more about them, specifically their family as a whole, I thought that was pretty cool towards the end. I also really liked August. She was super sweet, and I really liked Sullivan as well. He was cute. Added that little cute factor in there because he's shy, doesn't talk too much, but then just a cute kid trying to do his best. So I really did also like that. That whole family was great other than Silas. Silas. I have major problems with Silas, but the family, they were so cute. I liked them a lot. And probably one of my other favorite characters, I think she actually might be my favorite character in the book, was Valentina, or Queen Valentina, or whatever you want to call her. Her character and her storyline made the book so much better. I don't think I need to hold this book up the whole time. So when we're first introduced to her, she's really cold and rude and doesn't want to talk to anyone. And her whole perception of when we're first introduced to her is that she only has one lady with her and that she just takes care of herself and that's it. But once we start to get to know her character a little bit more, her story is so interesting, and just who she is as a person I found really interesting as well. We find out that basically the king just keeps her to himself. She's not allowed to really talk to anyone, and that's why Hollis's friendship to her was so like crazy, because she's never really had this in like such a long time. And her whole story, once she especially opens up to Hollis, was so interesting, and every interaction like in the book that had her in it just really made the story so much better, because not only did I like her as a character, but she moved the non-existent plot along. So I really liked that. So she and Leah Grace were probably some of my favorite characters in the book overall. And the last thing that I liked about this book was the Darkest Nights. This really intrigued me because after going from literally no plot the entire book, I think this was introduced a little bit over halfway in the book, if I'm not mistaken. At least something happened in the book. Once it first got introduced from Valentina that these people started taking people away and ruining people's lives and just created total destruction, it got my interest because something in this royalty like intense different world, something finally started happening. Especially at the end of the story then, once it's kind of revealed that it's probably King Quentin's people doing all of this, I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty good. It makes sense. That kind of plot device thing I really did like, because it pushed the story along. Again, there wasn't really much going on, so I liked that. And it actually, for the first time in the book, made me go, oh my god, what is happening? Which was something that didn't really happen in this book, other than like maybe 3 times. I'm gonna kind of transition into the things I didn't like, but one thing connected to the Darkest Nights is that we get introduced to them from Valentina, and then literally the next chapter we learn exactly what they are from Silas, and I'm like, let the reader wonder a bit, like put some mystery in there. But that didn't really happen either. And now we're just gonna jump into the things that make this book a 2 out of 5 stars. First off, characters. Me personally, I am definitely a character-driven person over a plot-driven person, and this book, it had no plot, but you have to give me something to work with. Even the characters, they also kind of sucked too. Specifically, the main 3 characters in this book. And the fact that the main 3 characters suck should say something. Like, imagine reading The Hunger Games and hating Katniss, Gale, and Peeta. Like, there would be no story then. First off, we have Hollis. And while I don't necessarily hate Hollis, I don't like her either. She was just kind of boring and bland. She was nice to the king, she was nice to Nora, she was nice to everyone, but no one ever really knew her true thoughts other than herself, which made it kind of boring with all her interactions with people. I also just didn't really like her narrating the story. Like, there was some good parts with her, but for the most part, it was just boring. And you don't ever want your main character to be boring, because why would they be the main character then of the story? You'd rather have Valentina be the main character then, because she actually brought something to the table. Hollis, it felt like she was just along for the ride, and other than the parts where she was debating on if she wanted to be queen or not, like, that was really the only part of her personality we got, other than the fact that she likes the arts, entertaining, and like being nice. She also was just weirdly forgiving of Nora, even though Nora only apologized once for doing certain things, even though she had been bullying Leah Grace for over 10 years. So I didn't understand how her best friend just suddenly forgave her all of a sudden, but what do I know? I also did not like the King, Jameson. He just felt also kind of boring too. There was some moments, again, where he was a little bit more spicy and made some things happen, but when he was nice to Hollis, like, he couldn't even see through her fakeness. It was so obvious she was being fake the whole time, like just always like kind of flirting and being nice. Like, how did he not see past that? He literally runs a country. In addition to that, it felt like he let Hollis go pretty easily after everything they've been through. Like, I felt he would have put up a little bit more of a fight based on how he seemed as a person. There was one thing that was a little bit interesting when he kind of yelled at Hollis for the first time. That took me aback, but then that part was like never mentioned again in the story, and it felt kind of big, but it wasn't mentioned, so I don't know. Like, his character was boring, and that one part he yelled at her was kind of interesting. That was literally the most interesting part, is when he like yelled at her that one time. So if that's your character's most interesting part in the book, I think that says something. But I mean, he wasn't the worst character. He was just really boring, just like Hollis. They're really perfect together. But now, my least favorite character in the whole book, Silas. Literally, what? He sucked. First off, he's only really known for his blue eyes, and that's about it. We also then learn he does metal work and makes swords and knives and various things like that, but that was what he was known for from the moment we met him in the book, and what she constantly referred him to throughout her thoughts in the book as well. He felt super boring, and the fact that he just immediately like started to get a romantic vibe with Hollis, even though he knew she was about to become queen. Like, you just come in seeking like a place to stay from the king of like almost a rival country, and you're treated with all this respect, but here you are trying to go after the soon queen. Like, what? And then they also kissed, and his feelings for her and also her feelings to him, I'll get into it later, came too fast, and he literally just started being too nice too fast. He had no real personality to him other than just to be the love interest for Hollis and to take her away from the king. I don't honestly know anything about him other than the fact that he has blue eyes and does metalwork. That's all we know about him. At least in like the Hunger Games, we know the background of Peeta and Gale. But in this book, we don't know anything. Like, it just missed the mark. So Silas, apart from being boring, was bland, predictable, and I didn't even like the romance that happened between them. So I honestly just did not like his character at all. I'm gonna move on to the plot in a second, but I just have a couple more characters that did not hit it for me. One was Hollis's parents. They were boring. Again, a common theme in this book. The only purpose they really seem to have is whatever Hollis wanted, they just disagreed with that and tried to not get her to have it. They were just overbearing and rude and just not a good time. And King Quentin, he was just angry all the time. Like, we didn't really get to learn anything about him, which I guess is a little bit of the point because he's mysterious, but we didn't ever see him once interact with anyone and have a genuine conversation once. So he's literally just angry all the time. And I get he's had like a hard life, but how do we not have like one instance? Not with the queen, not with King Jameson, like we don't see any of that. So it felt just kind of bland again. So I am a character-driven person, but there might have been a few characters I liked, but not enough characters that I liked to make up for any of it. Even if I'm a character-driven person, the plot, there was none. So we're gonna get into that now. Like, there was no plot in this book, or at least very little. Literally, like, within the first 100 pages of this book, possibly the most critical time in the book, the only thing that really happens is Hollis goes from being one of the girls the king talks to being promised to be made queen. And the first 100 pages, like, for me, like, I read a bunch, I can get through a book even if I don't really like the beginning. But for someone who just casually reads and doesn't get through things very quickly, the 100 pages at the beginning are crucial to keep someone's interest. And literally nothing happened in the first 100 pages that was worthwhile. There was 2 interactions with Silas, but nothing even that great. So I feel if I wasn't determined to read the whole book and like hope for things to get better, like I would have easily have put it down as well. In the selection, I remember it took just over 100 pages to get America to start the selection, but there were things that happened before that point to keep people's interest, such as introducing love interests or family dynamics. In this book, nothing quite hit the same. So I thought after 100 pages, with nothing happening, something would happen, but nothing really did. Like, we had a bit of stuff with Valentina, but there was no major plot things other than a couple conversations until the last 50 pages. The last 50 pages is where all of the plot comes in this book, and it wasn't even that much, to be honest. It kind of just set up the next book. And one thing that annoyed me at the end of all of this is that Silas died. Like, you're telling me the love interest dude from the beginning just serves his point to get them married and then dies. Like, tell me that's not pointless. Like, it was pointless. Like, they were literally married for 5 minutes, and then the Darkest Nights came and destroyed everything. I liked how they made an appearance. That was the second time where I was like, oh my god, something's happening. The first time was when we learned of them. The second time was when they actually appeared. So I liked that. And then again, in like the last 20 pages, we actually find out that the Eastoff family has like a royal connection, like in their bloodline or something. So it's like, whoa, this was missed out on the whole time in the book. How did we not know this sooner? Like, I did not pick up any clues on that. Did not hear it mentioned once. Everyone was just so grateful to have escaped their old kingdom. So why all of a sudden are they now like, they could be royalty? I don't understand why this was not hinted earlier. Unless I just missed it, but I don't think I did. Anyways, so other than nothing really happening in the last 50 pages, there was one instance of plot convenience where it was so obviously plot convenience, I don't know why it was kept in the book. And it has to do with Delia Grace's backstory. So I'm just gonna read this part from the book about her past. So her father claimed that his wife, the former Lady Clara, had an affair that resulted in the birth of their only child, Delia Grace. On those grounds, he demanded and was granted a divorce. But within 3 months, he'd run off with another lady, handing off the titles Delia Grace was set to inherit to this woman and any offspring they might produce. So you're like, okay, that makes sense. I guess, kind of. But then, Hollis herself, the main protagonist, says these exact words. I'd always found the whole story questionable. If Lord Dumnall had suspected his wife had been unfaithful and that Delia Grace wasn't his, Why did he wait 8 years to bring it up? There had never been any proof to back up the claims, but he was granted his divorce all the same. So if the main character herself is questioning why this was allowed, don't you think it shouldn't be in the book? Because I'm questioning it as the reader. But if the protagonist of the book is questioning what's happening, like, shouldn't that say something? Like, my only guess as to why this is in the book is that it might set something up in the next books to come, but I don't really want to read the next books to come because I didn't like the first book. So now I'm just stuck here with these bad opinions of the poor backstory. So I don't really know what the point of that was, but I didn't like it. So needless to say, I did not like the plot. And now, normally something I really like in books is the romance. But unsurprisingly, I did not like it. Like, point blank, the romance in this book, it just sucked. It normally doesn't take much for me to be excited about romance in a book, but like, it just completely missed the mark. We start off with Hollis wanting to be queen, not really wanting to be Jameson's wife. And every kind of instance she talks about him, it's more about the crown and what comes with it rather than just loving him himself. So I honestly wouldn't even really call that a romance in the book. Like, you can kind of link it together because they're set to be married, but there was no really relationship between them. And she never really wanted it from the first place once you kind of realized what actually came with the title. So the main romance was between Hollis and Silas, and I did not like their relationship at all because Hollis's whole feelings based on him was from the moment I looked at him, my heart pulled towards him. Like, girl, your heart can pull towards food. Like, what is that supposed to mean? And literally they only had, I think, like 5 interactions before they kissed and like had all these plans to like just be together. I didn't understand how this man came into the castle from his old kingdom because it wasn't safe for them there anymore, and he was now risking everything to just kiss the almost queen. Like, how does that make any sense? And literally after like 5 interactions, they're ready to get married, and he says to her like, Hollis, you are my sun. Even in the night, you are still my sun, bringing light into my world. I'm like, bro, calm yourself. Calm yourself. Like, you've talked to her 5 times. Literally like 5. So calm down. And also there was like an attempt at a love triangle kind of between the king and Silas and her at one point, but it didn't even really feel like much was there. It was just kind of like an attempt that was poorly done. Like, it was clear who she wanted, but it was still kind of floating around there anyways. So I feel the love triangle, even in the selection, even if I didn't like it that much totally, at least it was better than this. So ladies and gentlemen, that is why I've given this book a 2 out of 5 stars. There were a couple things I did like about this book, but for the most part, it just missed the mark completely, and so for that reason, I feel the way I feel. I really wanted to like this book. I really did. But if there's like another book in this series, I doubt I will continue on to read it unless people start to say it's good, or if I just change my opinions. Not really sure. But at this point, I would not recommend this book. I would highly suggest anything else, especially the selection series. It's much better. But yeah, this book just missed the mark. Anywho, I think those are all my thoughts on this book that I can think of for now. If you have any questions you want to ask me, you can leave me a comment down below in the description and I will answer it best I can. But for now, those are all my thoughts on The Betrothed by Kiera Cass. Disappointing, but what can I do about it? If you enjoyed this review, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And like I said, comment down below any questions you might have for me or your opinions on the book if you've also read it. I'm sad that I didn't like this book, but hopefully Kiera Cass comes out with something great in the future that I will actually enjoy. Anyways, I will see you all very soon in a new video. So until then, bye.